I want you to try something for a second. If you're in a place where you can, just, close your eyes.
Yeah, if you're not driving, obviously.
Right, definitely keep your eyes open if you're driving. But if you can, I want you to vividly imagine a sound.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's not a loud sound either. It's this incredibly satisfying, almost like ASMR-style sound of a digital factory waking up in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's a great visual. Or, well, audio visual.
Exactly. Imagine the rhythmic, almost mechanical clicks of data snapping into place.
Like relays closing.
Yes, exactly like relays. Picture the low, steady pulses of massive information transfers and that deep subsonic hum of servers.
Servers sitting 1,000 miles away in some dark data center.
Right. Processing complex, mind-bending geometry while you sleep. Just sit with that hum for a second.
A really specific vibe.
It is, because
Yeah.
that is the sound of an invisible digital engine turning, like a bruised grocery store apple, into a razor-sharp, flawless obsidian artifact, and doing it completely autonomously.
Yeah, it's a very specific texture of automation. It feels cold, but incredibly precise.
Almost clinical.
Yeah, exactly. Like an intricate clockwork mechanism,
Right.
but made entirely of light and latent space calculations and code.
And the reason I want you, the listener, to hold that image, that feeling in your mind, is because of what we are unpacking today.
It's a big one today.
It really is. We aren't just, marveling at the shiny visuals of those viral AI transformations you've probably seen all over your feeds.
Right, everybody's seen the videos, the fruit turning into gems.
Yeah, they're everywhere. But we are going backstage today. We actually got our hands on an incredibly exclusive, highly technical document. It's called the n8n AI Alchemy Blueprint.
And our mission for this deep dive is to completely tear it apart. We want to show you the actual architecture underneath all that shiny output.
Exactly. We are looking at the node configurations, the payload structures, and the specific prompt weights that make this whole illusion possible.
Framing this from an architectural standpoint changes the entire conversation, I think.
Oh, totally. Because we are looking at the transition from manual, painstakingly slow frame-by-frame rendering.
Which is how it used to be done.
Right? Transitioning from that to a fully automated, headless infrastructure.
Yeah, this is a system designed to run entirely off of webhook triggers while the architect is literally asleep.
Which fundamentally shifts the marginal cost of high-end digital value generation to zero. Or, practically zero.
Exactly. Once the machine is built, the cost of running it is just compute.
So this deep dive is custom tailored for those of you who want to peek behind the curtain of digital productization.
We're looking at how raw, uncalibrated smartphone footage becomes high-end, scroll-stopping digital gold.
And the wildest part of this hyper-advanced cloud-based pipeline.
It's so funny when you actually think about it.
Right. It starts in the most analog, physical way imaginable.
With a knife.
With a literal kitchen knife.
Yeah, the physical grounding is, it's really the cornerstone of this entire workflow.
Because the blueprint reveals that the creator starts with a totally mundane physical object, like a piece of fruit or a river stone.
And they use high-precision cutting techniques to physically score the object.
Wait, I have to stop you there, because this is where my brain just hit a wall when I first read the source material.
It's a weird concept to grasp at first.
It really is. If I have access to a server rack full of, H100 GPUs and a generative model that can synthesize an entirely photorealistic, biologically accurate alien ecosystem from a single text string.
Right. Infinite generative power.
Yeah. Why am I wasting my time standing in a kitchen chopping a regular apple with a scalpel? Why not just let the neural network invent the geometry?
That is honestly the assumption most people make when they first interact with generative diffusion models.
It seems logical, right?
It does. But you have to look at how these models handle z-axis depth tracking and structural volume.
Okay, break that down for me. What happens if I just feed an unbroken, smooth apple into the pipeline?
Well, when you feed an unbroken, smooth object into an image-to-image pipeline, the model has no volumetric anchor for the interior.
Right. It can't see inside.
Exactly. So it has to hallucinate the internal geometry. It relies entirely on its training weights to just, guess where a fissure should exist.
Or where a crystalline lattice should protrude.
Yeah, so it's essentially just painting a texture on a flat surface.
Wait, so it's just like a 2D filter?
Worse, it's painting a texture that conflicts with the physical lighting of the original video.
Oh, because the lighting in the room hasn't changed?
Exactly. Even when we look at an impossible image like a banana morphing into solid translucent ruby, Our brains are running a continuous background check on the physics of the scene.
We're always calculating gravity and photon dispersion, even if we don't realize it.
Right, and structural integrity. So if the AI hallucinates a deep crack on the surface of an unbroken apple leaf,
The actual shadows won't match.
precisely, the Z-depth map of that generated frame will wildly clash with the actual physical shadows cast by the studio lights in the raw footage.
The lighting looks floaty.
Floaty is the perfect word for it. The edges feel mathematically sterile rather than structurally embedded in reality.
Okay, I'm picturing like a Michelin star restaurant.
Okay, let's hear it.
You have a chef prepping ingredients. They dice the onions with microscopic precision. They score the fat on a duck breast so it renders flawlessly.
Yeah, they're establishing the physical architecture of the food.
Right. And if they hand those perfectly prepped ingredients over to an entirely autonomous robotic kitchen, the digital oven can execute the cook perfectly.
But if the physical cuts are sloppy,
Or uneven or just totally absent, the machine can't invent the missing surface area. It can only work with the geometry it was given.
that's a great analogy. The blueprint actually refers to this perfectly scored raw footage as the base asset.
The base asset, I love that term.
Yeah, because when you manually score a stone, you are creating real-world microfissures.
Asymmetrical ridges, unpredictable shadows.
Exactly. Based on how that specific material naturally yields to kinetic force, you are forcing the camera sensor to capture a highly complex, chaotic luminance variance.
And that variance, that chaos, is what the AI latches onto.
Exactly. When that video frame is passed into a depth estimation model, like Midas or depth, anything.
Right, the models that calculate depth from a flat image.
Yeah. That luminance variance is translated into a highly detailed grayscale Z-depth map.
So the physical cut creates a stark contrast in the grayscale values.
Yes, and that contrast tells the control net architecture, hey, there's a deep physical canyon right here.
You are giving the generative model an unbreakable, mathematically precise skeleton of reality.
Which is huge, because when the high-end textures, the platinum or the obsidian, are mapped over that specific human-induced geometry.
It creates a visual tension.
Exactly. The contrast between the chaotic imperfection of a physical cut and the hyper-perfection of the digital output is what creates that visceral ASMR-like satisfaction.
It's kind of the difference between a synthetic lab-grown diamond that is mathematically flawless and a natural diamond with microscopic inclusions.
Yeah, we instinctively place higher value on the artifact that proves it survived the messy, high-friction forces of reality.
Oh, that's wild. So you have this perfectly scored fruit. It's grounded in physical geometry. But, you can't just text that video to ChatGPT and get a masterpiece back.
No, definitely not. It has to be digested by a very specific type of machine.
Which brings us to the second phase of the blueprint. We move from the physical workbench to the automation engine.
The n8n canvas.
This is where the workflow transitions from an art project into a full-blown industrial pipeline.
And n8n is such a powerhouse for this kind of logic-based routing.
I really want to visualize the sensory experience of this specific canvas because the screen recording detailed in the blueprint is stunning.
It looks like something out of the Matrix.
It totally does. It's this dark mode grid just sprawling with interconnected nodes.
Thin, glowing digital threads link these blocks together.
Yeah, creating this complex neon subway map of data routing, and you see data literally pulsing down these threads.
A green light flashes on a webhook node, a thread illuminates, and the subsequent logic node catches the payload.
Click, pulse, hum. And the crazy part is the trigger for this massive multi-server chain reaction is incredibly tactile and simple.
Right, it's not some complex terminal command.
No. The creator simply drags the raw video file of the scored fruit and drops it into a designated Google Drive folder.
That single folder drop is the tripwire.
It's almost anticlimactic how simple the input is compared to the output.
But from an architectural standpoint, the amount of heavy lifting executing autonomously off that single event is staggering.
Walk me through exactly what happens the millisecond that file lands.
Okay, so the instant that file lands, the n8n workflow initiates. The trigger node isn't just seeing a file, it's parsing the metadata.
Right, so it's checking what kind of file it is.
Exactly. It extracts the file ID, checks the AME type to ensure it's a valid video format, and constructs a JSON payload.
Okay, so it builds this little data package.
Yes, and that payload is then fired through an HTTP request node directly into a GPU server.
Like a server on RunPod or something.
Probably, yeah. running a headless instance of Comfy UI or a customized stable diffusion pipeline.
So the digital oven turns on. But it's not a standard oven. It's an automated assembly line with robotic arms passing the product from station to station.
Because the workflow has to manage multiple, highly intensive, asynchronous tasks.
Right, it's not just one generation and done.
No. The first API call passes the raw base64 encoded frames alongside that ControlNet Z-depth map we talked about.
So the AI calculates the geometry substitution.
But n8n doesn't stop there. It sets up a polling interval, or it waits for a webhook response from the GPU server to say, hey, I'm done.
So it's basically sitting there tapping its foot, waiting for the render.
Exactly. And once that initial render is complete, the n8n router catches the output payload, extracts the newly generated frames, and fires them into a secondary node.
A node dedicated entirely to upscaling.
Right, because the initial render is likely relatively low resolution.
Which makes sense to save on compute time and VRAM.
Precisely. You do not want to calculate complex light transport at 8K resolution on the first pass. You'd burn through VRAM instantly.
The server would just melt.
Pretty much. So the upscaling node utilizes latent space upscaling, or maybe a model like ESR-Jan.
And that breaks the image down into tiles, right?
Yeah, it breaks it down, upscales each tile while preserving those microscopic crystalline structures, and then seamlessly stitches them back together.
It's like having a team of microscopic painters detailing the image. And then n8n executes the final organizational logic.
It packages the massive 8K sequence.
Routes it to a designated cloud storage bucket, like AWS S3.
Generates a shareable link.
And sends a formatted JSON payload to a Slack webhook.
Your phone buzzes while you're out to dinner.
Your alchemy is complete. Here is the link to your 8K rendering. That is just, it's mind-blowing. The blueprint states, this isn't just art, it's an automated factory for high-end digital assets.
And that is a massive paradigm shift. Historically, a digital artist is completely bottlenecked by their physical interaction with the software GUI.
Right. They are manually adjusting sliders in Premiere or After Effects.
Waiting for a progress bar, rendering a frame, tweaking the Z-depth, and re-rendering.
Their production capacity is strictly limited by their waking hours and their physical presence at the workstation.
It's the artisan model.
Yeah, the blacksmith hammering a single broadsword over an anvil for 3 days.
But building an n8n workflow completely decouples creation from time.
Because the machine works while you sleep.
The creator steps back from the canvas and assumes the role of the factory architect.
They spend their hours optimizing the data routing, refining the API payload structures,
and calibrating the logic nodes. Once the factory is calibrated, the marginal cost of creating one more asset drops to effectively zero.
This is literally the industrial revolution for digital creators. You aren't carving a wooden chair by hand every week.
No, you're building the assembly line.
You calibrate the pneumatic presses, you set the RPM for the saw blades, and once you pull the lever, the factory manufacturs 1,000 flawless chairs while you sleep.
That's exactly what's happening.
But this brings up a massive existential dilemma for me.
Okay, let's dive into it.
If n8n is parsing the metadata, managing the Z-depth maps, executing the latent upscaling, and handling the Slack delivery, what is the creator's role?
Are they just a middle manager supervising API calls?
Right. If the machine is doing all the heavy lifting, where is the soul in the art?
Well, the creator in this blueprint doesn't view themselves as a manager. They view themselves as an alchemist.
An alchemist, okay.
Think about it. An alchemist's power doesn't come from physically stirring the boiling cauldron.
The power comes from possessing the highly guarded, esoteric knowledge of exactly which ingredients to drop into the compound.
Yes. The n8n factory is just the vessel. The true artistry shifts from manual execution to high-level conceptualization and linguistic precision.
Oh, linguistic precision. Because we haven't even talked about the secret codes injected into the raw material.
The prompts.
Right. The nodes aren't just applying a standard LUT or a color grade. They are injecting a highly specific vocabulary.
The blueprint actually provides a look inside the JSON payload of the prompt editor.
And the key words being passed to the generative model are not what you'd expect. They are not semantic descriptions.
No, we aren't seeing prompts like shiny red jewel or beautiful ruby.
The explicitly listed parameters are things like 8K refraction, internal caustics, and crystalline facets.
And the source explicitly notes the transition from asking for a gem to demanding physically accurate light scattering.
Internal caustics. I mean, it sounds like casting a high-level spell written in the language of physics.
It really does.
But why is this semantic shift so critical? Like, if I just type gemstone into a high-end diffusion model, I'm going to get a very pretty picture of a gemstone. Why do I need to demand physically accurate light scattering?
Okay, so when you prompt a standard AI for a gemstone, the model relies on semantic averaging.
What does that mean practically?
It means it accesses its latent space representation of every 2D image it's ever seen that was tagged with the word gem.
Okay, so millions of pictures of gems.
Right. It averages those pixel values and paints a surface-level 2D approximation of what a gem looks like.
So it is essentially an incredibly skilled painter rendering a diamond on a flat canvas.
Exactly. It looks real, but it has no real depth.
It lacks the physics of light.
Precisely. Terms like internal caustics and refraction force the diffusion model's attention layers to map to completely different latent vectors.
Because those terms aren't just descriptive words.
No, they are deeply embedded in the dataset from 3D physics engines, tools like V-Ray, Octane, or Unreal Engine.
So it's pulling from simulations, not just photos.
Yes. Refraction, for example, is the mathematical calculation of how a photon bends and alters its trajectory when it passes from a less dense medium, like air, into a hyperdense medium, like a diamond.
It's Snell's law calculated in latent space.
Exactly. And caustics.
Yeah. What exactly are caustics? I know the word, but...
Caustics are those intricate dancing patterns of highly concentrated light. Think of what you see at the bottom of a swimming pool on a sunny day.
Oh, those wavy light lines.
Yes. Or the sharp, bright lines cast onto a table when sunlight hits a glass of wine.
Okay, I know exactly what you mean now.
Simulating true caustics in traditional 3D rendering is notoriously computationally expensive.
Because it's tracking individual rays of light.
Exactly. The engine has to utilize ray tracing. It fires millions of virtual photons from a light source, tracks their path as they penetrate the crystalline facets,
Calculates their internal reflections.
and maps exactly where they land on the surrounding surfaces.
Wow. So by hard-coding these specific physics terms into the n8n API payload, you are entirely bypassing the model's tendency to just paint a pretty picture.
You are forcing it to act as a physics simulator.
You are saying, calculate the exact index of refraction for a corundum crystal, simulate a studio light passing through it, and render the resulting caustic displacement.
And the amazing thing is, this is executed via multi-step AI refinements.
Right, because the n8n architecture doesn't attempt all of this in a single pass.
No, it would be too chaotic. The workflow might trigger a first-pass render solely dedicated to locking in the z-depth geometry.
Make sure the shape is right first.
Yeah. Then, Node 2 catches that output and initiates a second pass specifically weighted to calculate the refraction index.
Okay, getting the internal bending of light.
And then Node 3 triggers a pass to generate the internal caustics, layering those concentrated light patterns over the established geometry.
It is a highly stratified, fully automated refinement pipeline.
It's like knowing the off-menu extraction variables at a high-end coffee roaster.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You don't just walk up and ask for a coffee. You give the barista the exact molecular temperature for the water, the precise atmospheric pressure for the espresso pull, and the micron-level grind size of the bean.
You are dictating the physics of the extraction.
Exactly. But with n8n, you've codified that high-level request into a JSON payload that fires automatically every single time a file drops into a folder.
So the ability to manipulate the generative output relies entirely on your fluency in its native computational language.
Which is a huge shift in how we think about art.
It really is. It sparks this wild thought experiment for me.
What's that?
If typing, make this rock a gem, yields a surface-level painting, but typing physically accurate light scattering yields a heavy, cold, hyper-realistic obsidian artifact that genuinely tricks the human brain,
Right.
is the true art form of the future just vocabulary?
That's a deep question.
Are we shifting from an era where we revere brushstrokes and manual dexterity to an era where we revere linguistic precision and systems architecture?
I think we are. The creator who masters the vocabulary and the architecture holds all the leverage.
And that leads directly into the business logic of this entire operation.
Yes. Because the ultimate goal of this pipeline is actually not the 8K video output.
Wait, really? The output isn't the point?
No. The video is just the byproduct. It's the marketing material.
Oh, wow. So the final video of the Ruby Apple is just an ad.
Exactly. The blueprint outlines a very sophisticated transition into digital productization.
Okay, break that down for me.
Because the workflow is entirely modular and automated within n8n, the creator packages the exact JSON payloads.
The prompt weights.
The n8n canvas templates and even bundles of the raw, scored base assets into a product line.
They are selling the infrastructure.
Yes. When I first saw these viral transformations, I assumed the monetization was like licensing the 8K video for commercial use, or maybe selling prints.
Right, the traditional art model.
But the product is the system itself. They are basically saying, if you want to run your own headless AI rendering studio, download my n8n template, import my prompt variables, and use my workflow.
It is the total decentralization of the creation mechanism.
Which goes against everything we've been taught about art and value.
Because traditionally, an artist fiercely guards their proprietary techniques.
Their economic value is intrinsically tied to their monopoly on the output.
Like, if you are the only person who can paint like Michelangelo, your paintings are priceless.
But if everyone has access to your technique, your output is commoditized.
Wait, hold on. Looking at this purely from an entrepreneurial perspective, my alarms are ringing right now.
Why is that?
If you spend 6 months calibrating this massive n8n pipeline, stress testing the API calls, finding the exact latent weights for internal caustics and 8K refraction, why would you ever open source that?
I see what you mean.
Why would you box up your proprietary digital factory and sell it for a fixed price? Aren't you just breeding a massive army of competitors who are going to flood the market with the exact same Obsidian and Ruby transformations?
It's a fair question, but you are looking at the market through the lens of scarcity.
Okay, correct my lens.
Generative AI fundamentally destroys the scarcity of high-quality visual output. We are entering an era of infinite visual abundance.
Infinite abundance, that's hard to wrap your head around.
It is. But eventually, through brute force prompting or just the natural advancement of diffusion models, someone else will reverse engineer a similar aesthetic result anyway.
You can't keep a secret forever when the AI keeps getting smarter.
Exactly. Trying to hoard a specific visual style or a single workflow is a losing battle against the curve of technology.
So the true enduring value is no longer in being the sole provider of the artifact.
No. The value is in becoming the platform.
But the infrastructure play. Don't sell the gold, sell the shovels, the pneumatic drills, and the maps to the mine.
Its workflow as a product. By selling the system, the creator elevates themselves from an individual artist competing in a saturated feed to the architect of a community.
They establish the standard.
The Blueprint's closing statement explicitly outlines this philosophy. It says, the future of content isn't just making videos, it's building systems.
It's a collaborative productization model, and the Blueprint shows exactly how to gamify this community infrastructure.
Yeah, they have some brilliant marketing tactics in here.
They tease an upcoming release called the Midnight Galaxy transformation.
Just the semantics of Midnight Galaxy implies they've calibrated a new payload.
Right, to inject cosmic starry physics and deep space luminance into a physical base asset.
And they strategically tie the release of that specific workflow template to a community milestone.
A 500 subscriber goal triggers a massive asset drop.
Which is so smart. This incentivizes the audience to actively participate in the expansion of the ecosystem.
The community isn't just consuming content anymore, they are stakeholders in the factory.
When the milestone is hit, everyone's individual n8n pipeline gets a free upgrade.
It drives massive lifetime value and loyalty. You aren't just buying a template, you're buying into a living ecosystem that gets smarter over time.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of what a creator actually is in this decade.
Let's pull back for a second and look at the sheer scale of the architecture we've mapped out today.
That's a lot to take in.
It really is. It starts in the physical world. A knife scoring the surface of a kiwi on a cutting board, generating the raw Z-depth geometry.
Creating an unbreakable skeleton of reality.
Yes, then that file is dropped into a cloud folder, tripping a webhook that awakens a sprawling, headless n8n factory.
JSON payloads are fired into GPU servers.
The raw data is injected with the physics-based linguistics of internal caustics and Snell's law,
forcing latent diffusion models to simulate ray-traced photon dispersion.
Multiple asynchronous nodes handle upscaling, file organization, and Slack notifications.
All without a single click from the human architect.
And finally, that entire automated infrastructure is packaged, open-sourced, and sold to a community of digital alchemists,
turning a proprietary workflow into a scalable platform.
It shifts the entire focus of the digital economy from the artifact to the architecture.
It really does. It's a whole new world.
As we wrap up, I want you to hold on to that sensory image we started with.
The factory at night.
Yeah, that cold, precise, deeply satisfying sound of the digital engine. The webhooks firing, the data pulsing down the n8n threads.
Because that is the sound of the new creator economy operating at zero marginal cost.
So we'll leave you with this. If the blueprint for digital alchemy is no longer a solitary talent, but an automated JSON payload and an n8n template triggered by a dropped file,
It forces a profound realization.
in the future, will we admire creators for the beautiful art they produce?
Or will we only admire them for the beautiful, humming, autonomous machines they build to generate the art for them?
Are you just making videos, or are you building systems?
That is the architectural question we all have to answer.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the digital engine of AI alchemy. We loved tearing the system apart with you, and we'll see you next time.